Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Shekalim. We're up to Perek Zayin, Mishnah Gimel. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev, and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam beGan Eden, Amen. The Mishnah now discusses what to do with meat that is found in places where it can be assumed to be sacrificial meat. The Mishnah begins, Basar Shenimtza Ba'azara. If meat was found in the temple courtyard and its status is unknown, Evarin Olot, if whole limbs were found, meaning the meat was cut into the large cuts into which an olah offering is divided before being placed on the altar, they are assumed to be the meat of olah offerings. Since only olah offerings are cut into limbs, the meat of other offerings which is meant to be eaten is cut into slices. Nevertheless, these limbs may not be placed on the altar. As the Mishnah will explain shortly, found meat is disqualified no matter what offering it came from. V'chatichot chataot, if slices of meat were found in the courtyard, they are assumed to be from chatat offerings. Although all offerings whose meat is eaten are cut into slices, it is unusual to eat the meat of shlamim or similar offerings in the courtyard, since they may be eaten throughout Yerushalayim. The meat is therefore assumed to be from a chatat. Now the commentators explain that actually it's possible that the meat is from an asham, since asham also is eaten by kohanim in the courtyard. However, the meat of chatat and asham offerings share the same law, so it makes no difference whether the meat is assumed to be from a chatat or an asham. Birushalayim, if the meat was found outside the temple anywhere in Yerushalayim, zivchei shalamim, it is assumed to be that of shalamim offerings, since those may be eaten throughout Yerushalayim. It might also be from a todah, nazir's ram, or animal maaser, or even regular non-consecrated meat, all of which may be eaten throughout Yerushalayim as well. The Mishnah uses the term shalamim only because most meat eaten throughout Yerushalayim was shalamim meat. Since the meat of olah, chatat, and asham offerings may not be removed from the courtyard, we may assume that the meat found outside the courtyard is not from one of those offerings. In either case, whether the meat was found in the courtyard and assumed to be from an olah, chatat, or asham, or whether it was found somewhere in Yerushalayim and assumed to be from a shalamim, it may not actually be eaten or offered on the altar. Rather, it should be left overnight until its appearance changes and it thereby becomes disqualified. And the commentators explain meat left overnight loses its moisture, which results in it losing its robust appearance. However, the offering does not become disqualified simply because the appearance changed. Rather, this is an expression that means that the meat is left overnight to become disqualified because it was not eaten in its proper time. Sacrificial meat, we know, must be eaten within a specific time. If it is not, it becomes disqualified as notar, leftovers, and must be burned away from the altar. Similarly, the parts of an offering that should be burnt on the altar also become disqualified if they are left off the altar overnight. Since the entire olah must be burnt on the altar on the day it is slaughtered or during the night that follows, any olah meat not placed on the altar by the following morning becomes disqualified as notar. Now, meat assumed to be from a shalamim offering must be left over 2 nights before it can be burned as a disqualified offering, since the shalamim may be eaten over a period of 2 days and the night in between. And it should then be taken out to the place of burning where disqualified offerings are burned. This was an area in the courtyard designated for burning disqualified offerings. Now, it cannot be eaten or burned on the altar because while it was lost, it was without supervision and may have become tameh. The meat and sacrificial parts of a slaughtered offering must be constantly guarded against becoming tameh. If they are not, they are treated as possibly tameh. It's known as hesech hadat, lapse of attention. But it can also not be immediately burned as a disqualified offering because it may not have become tameh, and it is forbidden to destroy offerings that are eligible. It must therefore be left until it becomes definitely disqualified, at which point it can be burned. Now, if the meat is burned in any case, what difference does it make what offering it is assumed to be? So the answer lies in what happens to be someone who wrongfully ate the meat. If someone ate meat assumed to be from an olah, he has transgressed a prohibition against mi'ilah, deriving benefit from consecrated items that are not meant for human benefit, and he must bring a special mi'ilah offering to atone for his sin. If he ate meat that is assumed to be from a chatat offering, he has not transgressed mi'ilah, since chatat meat may be eaten by kohanim. He has, however, transgressed a prohibition against a non-kohen eating chatat meat if he is indeed not a kohen. And if he ate meat that is assumed to be from a Shelamim offering, he has not transgressed any prohibition aside from the possibility that it might have been Tameh, since Shelamim meat may be eaten by anyone who is not Tameh. This is what Rambam explains in his commentary, as well in the Sefer Ulchot Pisulei Muktashin in Sefer Rambam, chapter 19, Halacha 4. The Mishnah now discusses what to do with meat that is found where there is no reason to suspect that it was consecrated. Nimtza begivulin, meat that was found in the provinces, anywhere in Eretz Yisrael outside of Yerushalayim. Everin nevelot, if whole limbs were found, they are assumed to be nevela, meaning the meat of an animal that was not properly slaughtered, and therefore it is forbidden for a Jew to eat such meat. Now, like we said, if whole limbs were found, they are assumed to be nevela, which were cut into large pieces, limbs to be fed to dogs, and they may not be eaten. Chatichot mutarot, if slices were found, they are assumed to be from a properly slaughtered animal that was then sliced up for human consumption, and they are therefore permitted to be eaten. Now, this applies only in a city populated primarily by Jews. For in such a place, we may attribute the slaughtered meat to the Jewish majority. If, however, there are as many non-Jews in town as Jews, the meat may not be eaten. Ubishata regel, if the meat was found in the provinces during a festival, shabasar merubeh, when meat is plentiful in honor of the festival, af everin mutarin, even whole limbs are permitted, because due to the great volume of meat being consumed during the festival, it was customary to cook whole limbs instead of slicing all of the meat into smaller pieces. And that is in Rabotai of Mishnah Gimel. Mishnah Daled now discusses what is to be done with live animals that are found near Yerushalayim because of the possibility that they may have been consecrated as offerings. Because of the many offerings that were made in the temple, most animals in Yerushalayim were used as sacrificial offerings. So Mishnah begins, Be'ema shenitzet miYerushalayim vad Migdal Eder. If a live animal is found between Yerushalayim and Migdal Eder, a place not far from Yerushalayim, it's approximately 6.8 miles or 11 kilometers from Yerushalayim, or at that distance from Yerushalayim in any direction, we assume that it comes from Yerushalayim. Since most animals in Yerushalayim are consecrated as offerings, we must assume that this animal is an offering. Therefore, Zicharei Molot, any male animals found there are assumed to be Olah offerings. Since Olah offerings must be male animals, most male animals in Yerushalayim were used as Olot rather than Shelamim. Olah offerings must be male, while Shelamim offerings may be either male or female. Therefore, it's logical that more male animals are used for Olot than for Shelamim offerings. Therefore, the principle following the majority when in doubt allows us to assume that any male found in Yerushalayim is an Olah offering. Now, we assume that the animal is either an Olah or a Shelamim, not a Chatat, a Sham, or any other offering, because Olot and Shelamim are much more common than other offerings. They are therefore offered on the altar as olot. Now, live animals cannot become tameh, therefore they do not become disqualified through lack of supervision, like we spoke about in Mishnah 3. Nekevot sivchei shelamim. Any female animals found there are assumed to be shelamim offerings, and they are offered on the altar as shelamim offerings. Since females cannot be offered as olot, female animals found in Yerushalayim are assumed to be shelamim. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the animals that are found are fit to be Pesach offerings, meaning they are male sheep or goats in their first year, they are assumed to be Pesach offerings, kodem laregel 30 yom. If they are found within 30 days before Pesach, since the laws of Pesach are taught beginning 30 days before the holiday, people began consecrating animals for their Pesach offerings at that time. Therefore, lambs and kids found during this period are assumed to be Pesach offerings. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the finder may actually use the animal to discharge his own obligation of bringing a Pesach offering. If the identity of the owner is subsequently discovered, the finder pays him for the animal. Now, the first Tana is not concerned that the animal might be a Pesach offering because he feels that people are generally extremely careful with the animals they have consecrated as Pesach offerings, and it is unlikely that a Pesach offering had escaped and gotten lost. And the Rav does tell us, Rabbi Yehuda, the Halacha does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. That is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.